What's going on, everybody? True Evil here, and today I want to give you a guide on how to auto Inferno Aurora. A lot of people have been saying that she is the hardest threshold boss to farm, and in actuality I think she might be the easiest, because Aurora's enrage mechanic is much easier to deal with than Terramatan and Doki Dokis for a lot of people. And that is because you can stop the enrage mechanic from happening if you do the mechanics of the fight, which we'll talk about as we build our team comp. Now, the most important thing we need to talk about when dealing with Aurora is Curse Shield. Curse Shield is probably the most annoying thing in any boss in the game and really hinders a lot of people from beating it. And the hardest part about it is, well, one healer is not going to be enough. Ling Lugi just doesn't have enough juice to actually deal with the curse shield. So you're going to have to use two healers. So I'm going to talk about my recommendations here. But before then, let's talk about the modules because it's going to be the same for both healers. You're going to want to have 12 Time Weave, Swift Rush, and a Volguard. Now, normally I think it's better almost every other circumstance to have 12 Swift Rush, 12 Time Weave, just for the cycling sakes, but because of how important it is to use the skill 3 to really attempt to break the curse shield, I think this extra 12% is better, and in my testing it seems to be way more consistent with a 100% rate versus say a 90% rate with the Swift Rush at 12. So I would recommend using this, but if you don't have a Volguard, the 12 Swift Rush, 12 Time Weave works absolutely fine. And on the shell, I recommend using Gigabyte, and that is because you're going to be rotating even more and more. You want there to be so many turn cycles that it really helps out with the cooldowns of the characters. Because if you're like me and probably 99% of players, you haven't invested in Ling Luo's skill 3 to reduce it. Most people, if they do put any lattices into her, they take this to level 5 on her skill 1, so the Whale's Prayer lasts longer. And this is definitely going to be much stronger in this fight than, say, the skill 3 with the lower cooldown. So if you do want to invest in lattices on Ling Luo, definitely get this to level 5. It's definitely the most important thing to do, but perfectly fine if you don't. I just got this to level 3 because I use her so much, and the 5% increase on her skill 1 is the strongest heal in terms of a healer SSR unit. Most of the heals only actually buff 2% of the max heal. For example, here with Perfect Soundwave, it is 12% both times and then goes to 13, and that isn't as significant as say 10% to 15%. So that's why I invested that way. Now for the secondary healer, there are two options. The SSR option is Mia, who sort of does a little bit of a similar function as Ling Luo, with the skill 1 having a way to give a sort of heal, but it's a shield. And unfortunately the shield doesn't help break curse shield, but it just helps you be more tanky and get through the fight. Now, the thing that really helps with this fight though is that her AoE heal is able to increase the duration of buffs, which means the immunity and, more importantly, the Whale's Prayer given by Ling Luo can be extended, which means significantly more healing. And because of how strong the burst is with this scaling off her max HP, with 3 modules of max HP, she's absolutely healing out the wazoo. The problem with her though is that all her cooldowns are at 5, and even though this Dispel and Pushback is pretty strong in this fight because you want to dispel the immunity that comes up consistently, the Pushback is actually pretty non-existent, but we do like the Dispel. And we use the exact same type of shell for this fight as we did with Ling Luo. There's no difference. We want the 12 Time Weave to make sure we are consistently always having that skill 3 ready when we need it to. So those are the two healers, and if you do want a SR option in the healers, you can use Chiaki, and that is because of her skills that give Origami Guardian, as well as she heals 10% of the max HP when she does her attack, so it's actually better of a skill 1 than Mia for this fight, and her heal is actually a little bit stronger. The difference is that she is applying Origami Guardian versus the actual extending. And personally, I think the extension is a lot better, but this actually has a lot of argument to just be almost. Chiaki could be better if you fully upgrade her. I'm going to be honest with that. But the problem with that is, well, most people don't have the purple lattices to max invest in a Chiaki right now, which is why a lot of people are going to the Mia with no lattices. So at base value, the Mia does come out, but if you do invest in Chiaki, Chiaki will be a better option. So just throwing that out there, just in case if you're wondering. Chiaki, definitely the juice in this fight, if you have the actual juice to power up. Now, after that, we're going to talk about how we're going to deal with the enrage mechanic, which is a multi-hit. Not only is there a multi-hit, but we have to deal with a immunity shield, and we really want to lower the attack. And speed down is also extremely helpful in this fight, and everything that I just said is with Viper. Now, the reason why the enrage mechanic is difficult for a lot of people is because they're not using multi-hits, and if they are using multi-hits, well, just hitting one time with the multi-hit is not going to be enough. And Viper, with his passive maxed out, is going to be counterattacking out the wazoo, and the counterattack is going to have multiple hits in it. So in that regard, because we need to lower that 15 down to 0, being able to consistently get 6 hits with Viper is really going to lower that number drastically. And due to that, the DPS we need to use also needs a multi-hit. Now, there's multiple options for the DPS. I am personally running Holden because Holden is my main DPS on my account. But any DPS that has a 3 attack is going to be really strong in this. That's why a lot of people use Rosa in this fight. It just really depends on who your multi-hit DPS is. Messiah also works as well, but if you do use Messiah, you're pretty much going to want a Lily. Actually, in almost any other circumstance, you're going to want a Lily. But if you don't have a Lily, it's perfectly fine. It's the support option isn't going to be as optimal, and it's going to add about 3 to 5 minutes to the fight without Lily. And I go with Doki Doki, and the reason I'm using Doki Doki for this fight is because I don't have a Lily. Now, the reason why Doki Doki is good is because she's going to just add stacks of data stream over and over again, and this is going to make it so that, well, we're doing 30% more damage and have 30 more speed by the first 3 minutes. And the reason this is good is because this makes it so the fight doesn't take forever, and you're really just boosting all your characters up and have a nice cleanse. The scary thing about the Aurora's Lingering Grudge is the actual dot effect that goes with it, and having the backup stacks makes it so you don't get hit with this giant DOT that can actually one-shot you. So in Inferno, Doki works extremely well in Aurora, but personally I would think Lily is better. So that is the team comp that we're going to be using. So let's just go straight to the fight and see how it works. Now let's see the team in action. This is going to be really important because you have to see how everything works. The fight always begins with the curse shield being added to us, and we have to start dealing with the stacks. Now the stacks are going to be right here, and you want to lower this as much as possible so this never gets to 15 and he can use Lingering Grudge. But either way, it's not a big deal with anything because of Doki Doki's ability to use backup. And since there's not a lot of debuffs in this fight, the stacks stay on pretty well. And the origami debuff that lowers your health significantly is just really never going to affect you if you have Doki Doki in your team, which is why she is so strong in this fight. Unfortunately, she doesn't provide enough DPS to really make the fight be short. So that is the drawback, but it also makes it so you just pretty much never die in the fight, which is nice. Now, as you can see with this immunity shield, it's just popping up like crazy. So even with 3 Despellers on our team, it's still pretty much not enough on auto to guarantee it to be down pretty much 100% of the time. But the good news is because there are 3 Despellers, there is higher chances of us to always just have the attack down and speed down on. For example, now we have the attack down, and as long as Aurora has the attack down and the speed down, we're pretty much good to go in this fight. So having the attack down on 2 characters, Dispel on 3, really makes it so this boss doesn't do a whole lot of damage to us. And if they do, well, we have the 2 healers, and as you can see with the gigabytes, we are just cycling like crazy and making it so we never really have to worry about anything. And more importantly, I want you to see that the stacks haven't really been brought up that much. The fight has been going on for well over 2 minutes at this point, and we're not even halfway onto the first stack, which is why I'm saying this boss's enrage mechanic is a whole lot easier to deal with than, say, Teramaton and Doki Doki. In those fights, if you are slow like this, it'll usually end up being like 8 to 10 stacks by the end of the fight. And luckily for us, Aurora has the most manageable enrage mechanic to deal with, so I wouldn't ever truly complain about this boss's enrage mechanic specifically, because as long as you're doing the mechanics of the boss fight, you're pretty much good to go. Now, it's always like weird to say that, right? Because not everyone is going to have a multi-hit DPS on their account. And I would argue that Viper isn't really a multi-hit DPS, but Viper is doing a majority of these hits. And you know, it's just really, I think you just have to build an SR for the most important farms, and that's just really about it. It feels a little bad, but we have to remember we're still in the first month of this game. We're still building our farm units, and it's going to feel a little bit bad because, for example, I really want to build Fangus right now, but unfortunately, because I need to build other units like Catchy the Guard, it's just I'm not getting the units I actually want to play with, and it feels bad now, but I know in month 2 I can actually build everyone I want to and everything will be fine. It's just getting through this one phase is a little difficult, and the reason for that is I personally don't think that Inferno should have been just like something that we could have gone to in 8 or 9 days, right? I think if there was a little chill time, it would be different, but there's just so much FOMO missing out on like rewards and things that it makes it so competitive people are having a difficult time with the game and are sort of struggling. And also, I would like to point out we are almost halfway through the boss's HP, and we didn't get to the first counterattack until right here. So that's really important to know. We got almost halfway down to the HP before we got the first enrage mechanic attacked. And I actually don't even see it on the boss. I actually don't think they even got the attack up. So I think we're good to go on that front. It is a little sad though when you have the curse shield and you watch it in real time, because as you can see, the difference between how much damage they do is staggering. It's like I do about 18k with my Holden when he doesn't have curse shield, and he does 1500 without it, which is, you know, that's over 90% difference. A little scary. And it's harder to cheese this boss because some other bosses, for example, lower attack when they do things like this. So when you use Holden, right, he scales off defense, so he doesn't have to worry about like attack down scaling off every turn. So important to notice that kind of stuff. And I don't really want to show this whole fight because it's pretty much this the entire way. We're never truly losing more than half of our health, and the only reason we do lose half our health is because of the counter up attack. But because we have the multi-hit, because we have the 2 healers, as well as all the increased speed from the Doki stacks, we pretty much can't die in this fight. So this is a guaranteed dub skis pretty much every single time. And we don't really have to worry about a whole lot. As you can see, full HP again. We have all these stacks of everything, and we're cycling like crazy. There's nothing we need to really worry about. So yeah, the only downside of using this team comp is, well, it takes forever. And if we did have a Rosa this would take significantly less time. But the problem with that is, well, there's just not enough lattices at this point. And honestly, when I was looking at Holden in the beginning, I thought his DPS was pretty insane, but that was because I was using him in PvP. And unfortunately, I went with my PvP brain versus my PvE farming brain for how I was going to invest in my characters, which means I'm a little bummed out right now, but it is what it is. Next week everything will be better, hopefully, so we'll see then. Hope this guide helps.